This is a download from the BBC. You'll find more information at bbcworldservice.com.
120 years ago, the airwaves were silent. Slowly, they began to fill with sound. First, just a letter at a time, then voices and pictures.
Through one of the marvels of modern science, I am enabled to speak to all my peoples throughout the empire.
Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war.
Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, is crowned.
Now the frequency bands are crammed with noise all day, every day. You can hear distant voices, and there are more, many more, still to come. Digital technology strips sound and pictures down to a code of zeros and ones. It leaves room in the airwaves for added signals: data, radio, television.
88 to 91 FM, Radio 2 from the BBC.
BBC Radio Scotland with Andrew Castle and Derek Bateman.
BBC World Service at 7 o'clock GMT.
BBC.
BBC Radio Kent at 7 o'clock.
And this is BBC News from BBC World.
That's just a fraction of the output from just one broadcaster at one moment in time. The BBC and others aren't just sending sound and vision from traditional transmission towers, but from satellites in space and increasingly down cables to your computer. Broadcasting used to be an expensive affair. Now with a computer, a small video camera and a little bit of software, anyone can make their own TV shows and make them available to billions of people on the internet. I'm watching a propaganda video, a bomb attack by Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It's a complex production, sound, vision and music. Paul Edel is a journalist who's studied the way militant Islam uses the media and the new media to promote its message.
From the very beginning, Al-Qaeda and other jihadi groups have seen the media message as integral to their campaigns. In many ways, the purpose of using extreme violence is to create an event that will be a media event. And since you can't be sure that journalists will cover your event in the way that you want, you cover it yourself. And they go to great lengths to film operations. The internet has been a revolution for any group with a political agenda. That group can go directly to its audience without going through a filter such as the BBC.
How would you describe these videos that we're looking at now? Are they propaganda videos? Are they TV productions?
How would you describe the Pentagon's television channel for its troops in Iraq? These are television productions, yes. They're television productions of a 21st century nature where anybody can set up their own channel, anybody can edit, and nobody can regulate.
Such a direct means of communication with supporters. Do you think that changes not just the way they do things by taking 3 cameras along on a suicide bombing, but the things that they do?
Yes, it does. I think Iraq has been the video war in many ways. Since broadband access has spread, routinely groups in Iraq have been videoing all sorts of operations. Every time they blow a Humvee up, there'll be a 30-second clip on the web, and higher resolution. So in that context, the strategy of beheading hostages and videoing it and putting it on the internet was extremely powerful. These videos, if you've ever watched them, are extremely difficult to watch without being deeply affected.
They are absolutely unbearable.
So if you think about the implications of that, the purpose of the beheading was not to kill the hostage, which could have been done much more cleanly with a bullet in the back of the head. The purpose was to create an event to be videoed.
Paul Edel makes a critical point. In the new media, there are no filters. It means that killers can find an audience, but it also means that voices which once were silenced can now be heard.
Whoever is proven to have a link with me inside Saudi Arabia is likely to be arrested and interrogated at least.
Saad Faghi is an outspoken critic of the ruling family in Saudi Arabia, and he's a contentious figure in the West too. He lives outside Saudi now, but every day he breaks through its borders to spread his message. This is his television station.
It's a matter of evolution. We started with the fax machine. Then we moved to simple email shots. Then we moved to proper website. Then we moved with a radio station, terrestrial radio station. Then we moved to a satellite radio station. At the end, we succeeded in having picture and sound, almost full-scale TV service.
Why is it that you have to operate from London?
In Arabia, there is no room for alternative voice. And the regime does not only prevent people from telling the truth, it sends the false message. There is a mixture of secrecy and deception. The importance of technology lies in the fact that it is the tool which enables you to break the barrier, to send the real message which people need, and also to enable people to communicate with each other inside the country, while you are actually outside the country. So you are breaking the circle of secrecy and deception.
You're not a journalist, you're a political activist, a politician. What you're doing is broadcasting your own propaganda, aren't you?
We are not a media service. We are not a magazine or a newspaper. We are a political group, very clear, very frank, sending our own message. You do not need to be very rich. You do not need to be very powerful. You do not need to be very famous in order to have access to people.
Not everyone has Saad Faghi's financial resources, but if you can get onto the internet, you can set up a blog. The rather ugly word comes from weblog. You type what you want on a website and invite comment. These factors are key to what makes this new medium new. It's cheap, almost free, and it's interactive.
Right, Sky News is reporting that the Standards Committee is to launch a full inquiry into John Prescott's visit to the Colorado ranch of Philip Anschutz. Now, I'm asking on the blog, is this more than a mild rebuke? So now I'm just finishing off the story. I'm not near a TV, so I'm relying on my blog readers to...
Ian Dale is an activist in Britain's opposition Conservative Party. He updates his influential blog several times a day. The British Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, has found himself in a bit of trouble. He's admitted having an affair with his diary secretary, and he's accused of failing to declare gifts from an American millionaire. Much of the pressure on Mr. Prescott has come from the new media.
The blog world led the agenda on one particular aspect, which is rumours of his multiple affairs, which the print media, the broadcasting media, obviously have been extremely careful on, understandably, and the blog world has been slightly less careful. And I think some journalists in the mainstream media sort of are somewhat jealous of that position, because they obviously can't write exactly what they want.
Ian Dale says the rapidly expanding blog world is shaking up the media and making it more democratic.
It very much is a two-way process on blogs. They're different because they're less elitist than mainstream media outlets. Normally, if you're a newspaper reader, you've got no chance of interacting with the journalist who writes the story, apart from writing them a letter, which they'll probably ignore. The internet has provided normal, ordinary people with the opportunity to interact with the great and the good. Now we all can, because a blog is free, can be set up within 5 minutes. You can be in the middle of the Sahara Desert and have a blog, or you can be in central London. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter what your education level is. You now have a voice.
The things which you see are the strengths of blogging, the benefits of blogging. The fact that there's no one checking what you write, no one moderating it. Do you not think that that carries a risk with it? That anybody can say anything?
There are a lot of risks in blogging. It's a great medium for vendettas. I mean, I have a stalker at the moment on the internet who for some reason has taken a great dislike to me and has created a spoof Ian Dale's Diary blog. If you've got a vendetta against someone, you can use a blog to pursue it.
What kind of future do you see for blogging?
Of 147 million American citizens who are on the internet, 12 million of them now have blogs. And I think the number of blogs in Britain will probably double within months. And I think the future is for blogs to provide ordinary citizens with a way of expressing themselves, with a way of telling people about their lives, their views, in a way they've never been able to do before.
I'm in one of the BBC studios in central London, and with the press of just a few buttons, I can cross now to Boston to talk to a well-known blog watcher, Rebecca McKinnon. Here she is now. Rebecca, tell me, what do people write in these blogs?
Some people might use it as a diary to discuss, what they had for breakfast. Other people may use it to report on what's happening in their communities. There are a lot of experts and academics who use their blogs to share their thoughts and their research. So you can really use it for anything you want. You can use it as a news service if you want, or you can use it as a diary to talk about who you went out on a date with last night.
And it's not just a Western phenomenon. Where else are blogs taking off?
There's a huge Chinese blogosphere. Some people say as high as 30 million Chinese blogs. I'm not sure if it's quite that high. You are starting to get some bloggers writing from the Middle East, for instance, from countries that don't get covered very much, who are telling us things that we're not going to read about in newspapers simply because those countries do not have the types of breaking news that our news editors deem to be important.
To set up a blog is easy. There are step-by-step guides on the internet, and you can even put adverts on your website. One internet company offers a free service which scans your pages for keywords and automatically places ads on your site, and you get paid every time a reader clicks on them.
Some bloggers can earn a living by selling advertising on their blogs. Those are, I think, the minority of people who get large enough audiences to get enough clicks onto their site that they can do so. Probably most bloggers aren't good enough, or not necessarily not good enough, or might be writing about very obscure things that only 10 people are really interested in.
I'm rather glad you mentioned that. Obviously, I'm afraid to have to admit I'm either not very good or a very credible blogger, because we've set up, let me just call it up now, a little blog here, and did put some adverts on it.
Uh-huh.
And I can check now that we've made in the last 4 weeks precisely nothing. That doesn't come as a great surprise to you.
No, that's not surprising at all, and I think that's the experience of most bloggers.
That's a shame. I was hoping for internet millionaire status.
It's not easy to become an internet millionaire where anybody can publish. Getting attention becomes very, very competitive.
It's hard to have your voice heard when there are at least 30 million Chinese bloggers and many other tens of millions around the world, all shouting out at the same time.
Yep, you got it.
So millions and millions of new sources of information, millions of new voices. Does that mean that the big players, the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, does it mean that they'll find their audiences falling?
There's a kind of instinct out there that actually, in a world where you've got a million choices, you'll choose a million different things. Actually, if you look at use, for example, of different sites on the internet, the big brands punch through.
Mark Thompson is in charge of a big brand. I know you've heard of it, you're listening to it now. He's Director General of the British Broadcasting Corporation. Its past was in traditional broadcasting, but in the future it will have to do much more.
I think the revolution in media is a real revolution. It's not about switching off the television, switching on the computer. It's about a world where the TV gives you some stuff, the computer gives you some stuff, you can move programs from the TV to the computer and back again. It's a much more fluid world. You know, when people talk about the golden age of broadcasting, we're just entering it. I think this is the golden age is about to hit us.
The future for television is about to become a lot more complicated, a lot more competitive, and quite a lot smaller. What the broadcasters, the technology companies and others have decided is that we won't watch television just on a television set anymore, or listen to radio on a radio. Endemol makes TV programmes, and it's making little ones.
I've been fighting since I was 5, and I've got stomach muscles like iron. Go on, have a feel.
William Linders is Endemol's Director of Digital Media, and together we're watching a soap opera on a mobile phone. Inevitably, unfortunately, they call it a Moby soap.
At the end of the television series, it's announced that if you want to see more, you can watch more on the mobile. And at the end of the mobile clip, it said, well, if you want to know more, why don't you look at the television show? So it's a circle of communication. These episodes are specifically shot for mobile. It's very likely that people will watch this content not sitting in front of the television set 8 o'clock in the evening, but they can watch this type of content anywhere during the day. And also the length of the content you want to show. General thoughts are that you're not going to watch this stuff for half an hour. So it should be short clips, 30 seconds, a minute, or up to 2 minutes. All these kind of things we're experimenting with.
If I wanted to buy this extra mini 2-minute episode, how much would that cost me?
It's somewhere around £1, I think. Or, let's say, a different model we always also use, you can download it for free because it's sponsored by an advertiser.
One of the big buzzwords we hear a lot about is interactivity. What does that mean?
Well, for me, interactivity is setting up a dialogue with the end consumer and also getting a response from him. That can be through gaming principles, where we ask people to participate from home in the game shows we do. And that can also, for example, be by having them choose in which direction a soap series will go.
What do you mean?
Well, theoretically, you could think about situations where we would start a certain television show where the ending is not known yet. And based on the choices of the viewers, the final ending will be chosen.
So you could choose for Bob to have an affair with Claire or with Anne?
Exactly, yeah.
But not too many, because you can't afford to make so many endings.
You
not with everybody.
You shouldn't have too many affairs, that's for sure. So we have to limit that, yeah.
This revolution in communications has changed not only the way we tell stories, it's changed the stories themselves. In the classic movie romance Brief Encounter, Trevor Howard and Celia Johnson meet at a railway station and begin to fall in love. But it was 1945. They were married to other people, and the world was very different. They couldn't carry on one affair, let alone several.
Take a classic like Brief Encounter. In that film, they would be there, they meet, and what we're used to is they part, never to see each other again.
Quentin Cooper writes about film and about technology. He thinks the machines have changed the movies.
Now you think that's completely ridiculous. You know, at some point one of them would check their mobile phone and make a quick call. You can imagine everything from Gone with the Wind to King Kong and how all these things would have been changed if only you could call up at that crucial moment. If only you had a global positioning system to find where Kong came from. If only you had satellite navigation. They all change.
Nowadays, the natives on King Kong's island home would have their own tourist website, and in Gone with the Wind, the heroine, Scarlett O'Hara, would have watched the American Civil War live on 24-hour TV news, and she'd probably have shared rumours of war, passion and politics on her blog. I've just launched myself into cyberspace, and it's an astonishingly varied universe. Here's a site called MySpace. It's just one of the new social networking sites, an online community. People put up their pictures, details of their lives, their loves, and their hates. 2 clicks away, I can watch a television station from Australia.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Online. I'm Melissa Hamilton.
I can see TV shows that I've missed and listen to radio that was first broadcast while I was sleeping. Try it. Go to bbcworldservice.com. Click on Documentary Archives, Communications Revolution, and select. I can hear it now. Click on Documentary Archives, Communications Revolution, and select. I can hear it now.
It's been an explosion in the last 10 years, and I believe that there'll be a further explosion in the next 10 years.
Adam Hume is head of digital publishing at Red Bee Media. It's a company which advises the BBC and other organisations about future trends in communication and future technologies.
I think the last time there was an explosion like this was when Caxton invented the printing press, and we went from the handwritten Bible to the availability of the written word for the first time to a mass audience.
And now, what does the technology give that mass audience?
It gives them choice, and it gives them the ability to consume what they want, when they want.
You think power's shifted, don't you?
Very much so. Power is shifting from the broadcaster to the audience, to you and to me. We can make a choice what we want, when we want it.
It's raining heavily here in London, a day early in the 21st century, and we're just going to take shelter in an 18th century coffee house with Bill Thompson. Bill, you've been called an internet guru, and you led some of the most influential businesses onto the web. Why are we going to this old coffee house?
Well, we hear so many people talking about the communications revolution, the internet revolution, the way things are changing, as if this has never happened before. And back here in 1763, this place was one of many coffee houses around London throughout the 18th century where another sort of communications revolution took place. People would meet, they would talk about business, they would do deals, they would set up companies, they would arrange shipping, and the coffee houses were the centre points of that process. Similar to the way sort of many online sites, social networking sites like MySpace, are the centre of so much human activity and communication today.
Let's get out of the rain.
Would you like some jam and butter?
For me, the mobile phone is a change that's happened within my lifetime. For my father, I assume that it was television. I wonder what you think my 8-year-old son will consider to be his revolution.
I think it's going to be the ability to publish his own material. Television was clearly the defining communications medium of the last century. It was a one-way medium. It was a broadcast medium. Clearly, the age of television is over. We will get content and we'll view it on screens, but the idea of broadcast television is just, it's old. Forget it. Do something more interesting. The mobile phone is a two-way medium, but of course, it's all very temporary. What you say disappears as soon as you said it. Now, if I look at my daughter with her MySpace profile, if I look at my son with his online gaming, they create environments and words and pictures that exist independently of them and can be seen by other people. The bend has been between consuming, producing temporarily, and now being producers. We are all producers, and I think that's the big shift.
Is that a good thing?
Well, who said anything about good or bad? We're not making moral judgments here. The technology makes it possible. It is happening.
How can those traditional media organisations survive in a world with such diversity and such competition?
Why should they? If you look at the history of industrial competition, you see companies go out of business all the time. New technologies are invented. You see waves of what the economists call creative destruction sweeping over manufacturing industry and the steel industry. And we don't mourn those old companies, so why should we mourn the BBC in 20 years' time?
So this could be one of the radio programmes produced at the end of the life of the BBC.
Maybe in the declining years.